Welcome in the heart of the Middle East, the cradle of the oldest civilizations. A story is born that defies time, logic, and faith itself. This is the saga of the Israeli people, a narrative that begins not on blood-stained battlefields, but in the silent stars of the night sky. Imagine for a moment that you are standing under this vast, infinite sky. A voice comes out of nowhere, promising an elderly man that his descendants will be as numerous as the stars above him. There is no proof, only a promise and faith. Abraham, the patriarch, a man of deep faith, accepted this divine challenge. But how could he have imagined that his journey would lay the foundation for a nation that, millennia later, would fight for its identity and survival? From unforgiving deserts and foreign lands, amid divine promises and eternal pacts, this is a story of miracles and mysteries, of betrayals and unimaginable redemptions. Destiny would unfold in unexpected ways, such as for Joseph, sold into slavery, who became governor of Egypt, setting the stage for one of humanity's greatest salvation stories. But how can an oppressed and enslaved people find the strength to defy an empire? How can the weak defeat the strong and the impossible become reality? Join us on this epic journey of faith and courage, where every step is a test, every victory a story, and every moment a chapter in the eternal search for home. This is the origin of the Israeli people, a story that is not just about the survival of a people, but about the persistence of faith against all odds. What happens when the indomitable human spirit meets the divine promise? Find out in our special series, The Origin of the Israeli People, because some stories, despite their age, never stop being told. Sign up and embark on this unforgettable journey through time and faith. Abraham's Call. The wind whispered through the oaks of Mamre as the call came down from the sky, like a secret shared only with one man, Abraham. It was a voice that promised more than the human mind could conceive, a nation born from a single man, a childless old man whose wife, Sarah, had long known the cold cloak of barrenness. Abraham, then called Abram, lived in Haran, a city of earthly riches, where trade routes intertwined like threads woven by a craftsman's hand. It was a place of comfort, a home for him and his family, beneath the quiet glow of stars that knew little of the destiny they would shape. "Leave your country, your kindred, and your father's house," commanded the divine voice, resounding with the force of thunder, but the sweetness of honey. "Go to a land that I will show you." It was a challenge shrouded in mystery, a promise with no map, no compass, except faith. A faith that was to be greater than the mountains he would have to cross, deeper than the rivers he would have to ford. And so, with the moon as his lantern and the stars as his sentinels, Abraham set out. Sarah at his side, a companion whose own hope was rising like spring waters after a harsh winter. Together they left Haran, with its stone gods and smoke rituals behind them, heading into the unknown, driven only by the word of God. As they traveled, the sun burned at their backs by day, and at night the sky unfolded in a blanket of cool shadows. Through arid plains and foreign cities they walked, each step a profession of faith, each dawn a renewal of their covenant with the unseen. And God, in his immeasurable generosity, did more than guide their steps. He promised them descendants as numerous as the dust of the earth, as countless as the stars in the sky. A promise that laughed in the face of the impossible, that danced on the edge of the unbelievable. But the real test came not when Abraham accepted the call, but when he was instructed to sacrifice his son Isaac, the son of promise, upon whom all the hopes of a nation rested. On that mountain, at the moment when Abraham's heart weighed more than the entire universe, he tested his faith. And the angel of the Lord intervened, offering a ram as a substitute for the sacrifice, a sign that no obedience would go unnoticed by God's mercy. God's covenant with Abraham. God called Abraham out of his tent. Look now toward heaven and count the stars, if indeed you are able to number them. And as Abraham raised his eyes to the veil of night, the divine voice continued, "So shall your descendants be." This was not just a moment of promise, it was a covenant, an eternal oath that would mark the destiny not only of one man, but of an entire nation. Abraham, even at nearly a century old, with his faith unshakable in the face of time and doubt, found himself immersed in a promise that defied nature. Sarah, his wife, a woman whose womb the science of the time would have deemed barren, was destined to be the matriarch of a great nation. This covenant, sealed under the infinite night sky, depended not on human rituals or mortal sacrifices, but on Abraham's simple yet profound belief in the God who transcends the stars. The significance of this covenant extended beyond the bounds of the tangible. God not only promised Abraham descendants, but also land, Canaan, a vast region his feet had never set foot on, but which his children would call home. "All the land which you see, to you I will give it, and to your descendants forever." It was a promise of inheritance, of a future built on the faith of a man who chose to believe, even when everything seemed impossible. But the proof of the covenant came in the form of a divine request, a supreme test of faith. God asked Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac, the son of promise, on Mount Moriah. And as they climbed the mountain, Abraham's heart beat to the rhythm of a painful paradox, the fulfillment of promise versus the price of obedience. By raising the dagger over Isaac, Abraham not only demonstrated his willingness to submit everything to God, but he also precipitated the divine intervention that would reaffirm the covenant with an oath. "By myself I have sworn, declares the Lord, because you have done this deed and have not withheld your son, your only son, that in blessing I will bless you and multiply your descendants greatly." This moment of supreme tension, followed by heavenly relief, solidified the covenant between God and Abraham, a covenant marked not only by words, but by actions of unquestioning faith. And so through Abraham, we learn that covenants with the divine are sealed and tested on the altars of our own surrender, where heaven touches earth and the eternal meets the ephemeral. Joseph and the settlement in Egypt. In the tapestry of human destiny, few stories are as woven with the threads of suffering and redemption as that of Joseph, son of Jacob. Victimized by brotherly envy and sold into slavery, Joseph's life was a trail of adversity that challenged hope and tested faith. The narrative begins in Canaan, where Joseph, beloved by his father more than all his brothers, becomes the target of his deadly animosity. His dreams, vivid premonitions of future greatness, only inflame his brother's resentment. In a heartbreaking act of betrayal, they sell him to a caravan of Ishmaelites on their way to Egypt, beginning a saga of pain and purpose. In Egypt, Joseph's fortunes take a surprising turn. Gifted with supernatural charisma and an innate ability to interpret dreams, he attracts the attention of Potiphar, a high-ranking official of Pharaoh. Joseph rises rapidly, trusted and respected, until a false accusation by Potiphar's wife casts him into the dungeon, where the wronged and forgotten lament their fate. Yet even in the depths of despair, Joseph is not abandoned. His faith and his gifts persist, attracting the attention of the divine, which never ceases to act on his behalf. Within these dark walls, Joseph meets with two prisoners, whose dreams he interprets with astonishing precision. News of these interpretations reaches the ears of Pharaoh, whose own enigmatic dreams demand clarification. Summoned to Pharaoh's presence, Joseph not only interprets the monarch's dreams, 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine, but also proposes a plan of action. His wisdom is so profound that Pharaoh, a man accustomed to the counsel of the wisest, recognizes in Joseph a divinely enlightened spirit. "Can we find another man like this, in whom is the Spirit of God?" exclaims the ruler of the Nile. Thus, Joseph is elevated from prisoner to governor, to Pharaoh's right-hand man, charged with preparing Egypt for the coming years of famine. With Pharaoh's power behind him, Joseph implements his plan. During the years of plenty, he stores up vast quantities of grain. When famine strikes not only Egypt, but the surrounding lands, it is Egypt that remains a beacon of hope, thanks to Joseph's foresight. And then, in a divine twist, Joseph's brothers, who sold him into slavery, come to Egypt, kneeling before him in supplication for food, not recognizing the brother they have betrayed. The irony of fate has never been so poignant. Joseph faces a monumental choice: revenge or forgiveness. Emotions intertwine and collide within him: the pain of betrayal, the joy of reunion, the burden of authority, and the weight of memory. The revelation of his identity is a moment of intense emotion. "I am Joseph," he declares, as his brothers recoil in fear and amazement. But instead of revenge, Joseph chooses reconciliation. "Do not be afraid," he reassures them. "God sent me before you to preserve your lives." Joseph's sojourn in Egypt, marked by trials and triumphs, is more than a story of individual ascension. It is a chronicle of how divine providence can work through adversity for the greater good. He not only saves Egypt and the surrounding nations, but he also preserves the lineage promised to Abraham, ensuring that God's promise to his people continues to flourish. Exodus from Egypt. In the beating heart of an empire built on the sands of time, under the relentless shadow of the pyramids, a people cried out for liberation. These were the Israelites, descendants of Abraham, trapped in the clutches of Egyptian slavery, whose tears salted the foreign land that denied them rest and dignity. It was a time of brutal oppression, where the cries of the slaves mingled with the thunder of the whips. Pharaoh, the absolute lord of Egypt, fearing the growing population of the Israelites, imposed even more arduous labor on them in an attempt to break their spirit. But in each cry of anguish, in each silent plea, there fermented a hope that no tyrant could extinguish. On a night destined to change the course of history, God calls Moses, an Israelite raised as an Egyptian prince, but now an exile in the desert. In the solitude of the arid lands, before a burning bush that burned but was not consumed, Moses heard the God of his ancestors say, "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." The divine voice, full of authority and compassion, charged him with a mission: to free his people from Egyptian bondage. Armed with nothing but his faith, and a staff that could summon the powers of heaven, Moses returns to Egypt. Before Pharaoh, he issues the heavenly challenge: "Let my people go." But Pharaoh's heart hardens, a resistance that would bring about a series of devastating plagues